สวัสดีครับxin chào 大家好 apa kabar and hi to everybody. Thank you so much for all of your comments and interaction, especially over these last few clips when I've been going into what is Chinese, Vietnamese, what is Thai. For me, it's really fascinating to see how native speakers of these languages are reacting to their languages being spoken about, for them sharing knowledge. I'm learning things as well in the comments section. And it's interesting to see also how political thought and different biases can actually influence the way people learn and influence the way that people filter out certain information which could impede learning in some circumstances. The comment section in each clip has been fascinating, but one question has come up time and time again is, but how do you learn the languages? How do you learn so many languages? Sometimes this has been asked in a friendly way, and sometimes this has been asked in a hostile way. There was one commenter there that even took offense that I'd actually learned Cantonese. And they themselves were a Cantonese speaker, saying, why didn't you just learn Mandarin, or something to that extent. But there was one comment in particular which has actually been the inspiration and the motivation to do this clip. And that comment was, look, this is all great. You're showing the connections, and I've been watching your clips for years showing connections between languages and everything, but this is trivia. How does that actually help us learn languages apart from being just interesting information? Why can't you do clips like other people that actually speak about their journeys learning the languages? Now, I'm paraphrasing what their comment was, but that really got me thinking, and I thought, well, wait a minute, this is actually how I learn languages. So how do I learn languages? For me, I see languages as this, like a Rubik's Cube. Now, this is a 2x2 Rubik's Cube. I was first introduced to Rubik's Cubes back in 1981, where they were first a big hit. I was about 6 years old. And for me, the Rubik's Cube changed my life. My grandfather, along with languages, also taught me how to do the Rubik's Cube. But for me, the cube is the ultimate in muscle memory, pattern matching, and leveraging things that you know in order to make sense of something that looks seemingly unfamiliar. You make it look like something that you know, so then you can master it and put that into your muscle memory, adding to your arsenal. I'll show you what I mean. Now, normally I'd use a 3x3 cube like this, but for this demonstration, I'm going to use a 2x2 cube because we can see it a lot more clearly, a lot faster. So if I'm looking at this cube, I'm going to be looking for patterns that I can exploit. Now, this is like a language. When I'm looking at a language, if I already know certain languages, when I go in to learn a new language, I'm not going to be starting from scratch. I'm going to use and exploit all the knowledge that I already have in order to get a head start on that language. So if I'm looking like this, the first thing is I'm going to get it into a pattern that I know. And so I need to get, say, one side finished. And so I've got these whites here. Okay, so I've got this finished, and they actually look like they're all in shape. And then what happens, my brain goes into pattern matching mode. In my last clip, when I compared all different Chinese dialects, Cantonese, Hakka, Hokkien, and even Japanese and Korean, Vietnamese, I wasn't doing it as a political statement. I was doing it to show you how you can make these matches. And so what happens, I'll look at this and I'll start seeing patterns, and then my muscle memory is going to kick in. And so once my muscle memory kicks in, I can have to just trust that muscle memory and hope that it works. And look at that, it worked. And my muscle memory can just start functioning even though my brain is doing something else, and it was solved. How? Because I already understood the patterns that I saw. I had muscle memory, and I trusted my muscle memory could do what I needed to do in order to solve it and to match those patterns, and it just happened. So this is how I actually produce languages. And if I approach a new language, I'm going to look for patterns that I know and try and exploit them. Now, the politics, the history, whether those connections are real or not, I don't care when I'm learning, because those patterns for me are things that I'm just going to use for myself. If I can see a pattern there, I'm going to make it work for me. Even if that pattern isn't a real pattern, I'm going to try and make patterns that I see if it's going to allow me to get leverage in that language. So this same commenter said, look, all of these apps and things that you're trying to sell, I'm not actually trying to sell apps. The whole reason why I put, say, my Minecraft program together is so that you could actually get some skills to build tools. You see this here, I showed this in a clip a few clips back, this genome generator. This is not an app. Well, I guess you could call it an app, but this is just applying some skills, some tech skills, so that I could actually get data on genome, on Vietnamese, and then I could use the tool that I built myself in order to learn. And I build tools that allow me to exploit the patterns and the things that I already know. And so I'm not selling apps per se, I'm selling knowledge in how to exploit what's already inside of you. For me, tech is something that's really powerful. If you have just even a low degree of tech skills, the higher your tech skill, the more you can do, but just even a low degree allows you to do some amazing things with language. And so I build tools for myself. I don't build them to sell them, I build them for myself. And so in showing you things like in these clips, how there are relations and showing how sounds shift and things, I'm basically showing you these patterns so you can then start to exploit these things for yourself. This is another tool that I built for myself that you've probably seen in a bunch of other clips. But for me, this is something that really helps me learn language and understand how sound shifts. This is the Indic compass. It's the map of the human mouth. And so through understanding this, whether it's Chinese, whether it's Lao, Khmer, Burmese, any Indian language, this actually helps me learn and understand how these sounds shift. And the beautiful thing about this is that whether it's a Chinese language, whether it's an Indic language, whether it's even an Indo-European or Romance language, the mouth will tend to follow patterns that are based on this. So for example, church turns to kirk, ji turns to gai, gai, Cantonese, gai in Thai. But we see these shifts happen right across languages. Qi, K, we can see from Mandarin to Cantonese to Middle Chinese to Vietnamese, they'll all follow these patterns. And so coming back to that commenter that said, look, this is all interesting trivia, but it doesn't really help me learn the language. Why can't you show me how you learn the language? Well, this is how I learn the language. In fact, if you actually have a look at the modules that I put together for Minecraft, when we put it together originally last year for Verso International School, and then now it's its program in itself, you can have a look at that at jacademy.com. Look at these topics. We've got escaping our own brain. This is like what we did with the Rubiks Cube, being able to get thought fluency, the sound matrix, what we just looked at there, understanding how sounds shift, the first words of any language, how to start this foundation. That's just like that tool that we saw with the genome and the Thai cognates. This is what I do when I learn a language, total recall. And so this is starting to build these structures in the mind, and it's both about memory, it's about thinking loud and being able to make associations with knowledge that you already have. Again, comes back to the Rubiks Cube, or it's like playing music. Once you know your chords, your structures, you can start doing chord inversions. So for me, it's all the same, whether it's music, whether it's the Rubiks Cube, whether it's language, whether it's Morse code. And here's another one, playing with brain states. And so for me, when I was doing the cube just now, my brain just went into autopilot mode and my muscle memory kicked in. Because for me, these are neuro patterns. They're things that have happened over and over the past, 40 years now, doing these, to the part that it just kicks in. I'm in alpha state. I'm just on autopilot, and that happens when I'm learning language as well. So we have exercises in how to train your brain to go into alpha state in this, so you don't have to be thinking then of these connections. They'll start to kick in and you'll be able to develop fluency, the shapes of Thai, say. So how to match patterns again. So you learn these base shapes based on shape primitives from Indic scripts, Bahasa. And so then, okay, this is one that I put in. Even if you've never learned Indonesian or Malay before, I will show you basically some of the core root things between Indonesian and Malay, and then we practice swapping between dialects. And even if you've never learned these languages before, you can play with that. And again, that's learning muscle memory brain states. Data driven. So again, we learn data skills, so then you can actually get data that can be exploited to help you learn dialects and languages. You've seen that in all of my clips when I've been going through different dialects, languages. Actually, this is one that I'm going to go through. I want to do one on all of the 7 Chinese main language families, the Sinitic families, but then also go into regional language. So this is the Khmer Yu, Yanjiu. This is the Khmer language, which is an Austroasiatic language in the north of Laos and also in Vietnam. And you'll see all of these links again between Khmer, Vietnamese, and then also up into Chinese. So I want to show you these patterns again. Politics divide language more than actual linguistic differences. But when it comes to learning the languages, put the politics aside and start trusting on your brain's ability to match patterns, put it into muscle memory, and then go into autopilot. And so for me, the more you know, Xin Tao Vietnam and then final presentations. This was the original course for Minecraft, so the 11-week program. And then for this Evergreen Part 2 series, we've got up to almost 20 new sessions which actually use that foundation we did. And so once you've learned that, people learn the Mongol Bichik script, so the vertical script or any script. You can get it to a point where, just like, again, learning a Rubik's Cube, you just look at it and just start doing permutations on what you already know. You can take that knowledge from Thai or from Burmese or from Indic scripts or from Arabic, and you can learn the Mongolian script in 15, 20 minutes. It's actually using these same principles. Or you could learn the Khmer script in an hour, 2 hours, once you have this foundation. It's all about setting up a framework and then learning. And so coming back to that comment where the guy just asked me, look, why can't you just talk about your journey learning languages like people like Matt versus Japan or whatever do? And I love Matt's content, but this is my journey. Honestly, I sat and thought about it and thought, well, but this is actually how I learn. And so I just like to say this is a little different to some of the other clips that I've put out there. But as you watch me put these clips out there, I'm not just putting it out to share interesting trivia. I'm putting it out there because for me, this is my language journey. This is actually what's happening internally as I'm learning the language. And I honestly believe that if you have these foundations just like this, the more patterns you can match, the more that you can do. Now, when I first learned to do the Rubik's Cube when I was a kid, this is when it just first came out. And so the algorithms and everything were quite clunky. And I did it the same way for many, many years. And then I came back to it after, 15, 20 years. And the new generation, it had so many years to practice and refine their methods. They were doing the cube and solving it in much, much faster times than what we ever did. And so I retrained myself, but the original foundation that I had helped me learn it even faster. And so whether you're a Chinese speaker, a Vietnamese speaker, a Thai speaker, an Indonesian speaker, English speaker, Indo-European language speaker, whatever it is you speak, the more that you can add to that, the more leverage you're going to get and the faster you're going to be able to learn even more languages. Minecraft was a program that I put together to help consolidate all of that and try and turn it into a systemic approach. But it's basically how I learn languages. You learn muscle memory, you work with brain states, you have a bit of data skills, you join the dots, you get it into your subconscious, and then you jump across to other languages. The more you know, the more you can know. If you've read my Cracking Thai Fundamentals book or done the Cracking Thai Fundamentals course, that was actually like 20 years ago. Minecraft should have been a precursor, a prequel to that, but you could see it start there. Again, even that 20 years ago, it was all about the patterns, seeing there, because that's how I learned the language to this day. When I do these intensive speech analyses and coaching, and you've probably seen what I did with Paddy or even John Senna's Chinese, again, we go and have a look at these patterns. But I truly believe if you can have these pattern matching skills, if you understand what's going on, you understand a little bit of the history, once you start to be able to build that into your body, start getting those little subroutines happening and throw them into alpha state so you're doing them while you're on autopilot, the language is going to come much more naturally. You don't have to actively think of this. It's more than just trivia. This is real stuff that can really help you develop fluency in a new language. Anyway, that's my take. This has been a little bit of a different clip from normal. It's Christmas. Well, it's Christmas yesterday, Boxing Day today, so we're having a few down days, but I'll be back in full swing next week putting clips out. Stay tuned for these Chinese and minority language clips that I'm going to be put out. I'm excited to be able to do that. Don't forget to come and continue the discussion in the comments and in our Discord server. I'm Stuart J. Raj, Wang Huai Le. I'll see you on the other side.